tune written especially for me, Strange Fruit. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
So I introed with Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit. And I feel like it's a very poignant way to kind of introduce this concept of not only culturally sustaining pedagogies and this concept of like understanding a different point of view through a different lens. But what's uniquely interesting about this song is that everyone thinks that Billie Holiday wrote this song herself. Billie Holiday only ever wrote one song, and it was called God Bless the Child. And maybe I'll end this whole presentation with my rendition of it. But what is so unique and interesting about this song, so obviously, if you really get into the lyrics of this song, it is about the Deep South and Billie's journey, traveling through and touring with Count Basie and all of the experiences of lynching and this like atrocity of a people that we were scared of or didn't know or understand or didn't want to accept the culture that was American society. I think, and why I chose to use this as the intro of my whole presentation is that actually this song was written by a white Jewish man from New York. And it also goes to show how oppression can exist within another culture and still be translated within a very poignant way in a different culture and still be stimulated by this essence of what we consider American society. So, hi, my name is Evie Leroux. I will be presenting on arts integration and culturally sustaining pedagogies as a form of inclusive language for the emergent bilingual learner. And I just wanted to kind of go through and show you some of the things that I have been reading and preparing for this presentation. Although they will not be necessarily included in the presentation, I hope to use and address all of them in our meta-analysis paper at the end of the semester. So there's several books that are very helpful that I came across. The first one is Art as a Way of Talking for Emergent Bilingual Youth, a Foundation for Literacy in Pre-K to 12 Schools. Another book that I really love, and it's a part of my certificate programs for, well, it's addressed in my certificate program. So it's Borderlands, La Fronteria, The New Mestiza. This one, which is part of our curriculum for the class, Culturally Sustaining Pedagogies, Teaching and Learning for Justice in a Changing World. Here is kind of a list of articles that I have come across and have organized and want to address in my meta-analysis at the end of paper, approaching the topic of arts integration or arts-based strategies with the emergent bilingual learner. So what I'm presenting on is called Reshaping Space. developing arts integrated and culturally sustaining curriculum as inclusive language for the emergent bilingual learner. My sociopolitical context issue is being able to provide inclusive curriculum and instruction for emergent bilinguals. And this addresses curriculum design at the federal, state, district, and school levels, primarily within public and charter institutions. By embracing home languages and cultures, translanguaging nurtures the development of multiliteracies, enabling individuals to thrive academically, socially, linguistically, and intellectually. Another concept I came across that I really liked and wanted to include is this idea that emergent bilinguals have one unitary language system, and that language is bilingualism as a whole. Whether in a monolingual classroom setting or a multilingual setting, when working with emergent bilinguals, it is important that all of the students' linguistic resources are welcomed into the classroom. And I feel like it's ironic that our school systems, our educational systems limit our emergent bilingual students in ways like stigmatizing or segregating them from the multilingual classroom experience, when out of everyone, they have so much more scope of understanding than the monolingual learner. So that being said, I want to be able to create a curriculum that honors the emergent bilingual learner in multiple ways. I want them to be able to utilize their culture and language throughout this new learning system. I want them to be able to understand their culture and their understanding in a truthful and honest manner. And lastly, I really want this curriculum to honor and bring joy to this concept of a multilingual and multicultural classroom. And there are a couple different ways that I will address in the emancipatory discourse section of how we can make this possible. So I have two ideologies that I am addressing with this contextual issue. And the two forms of pedagogies that I am creating, developing, and writing in this curriculum format is arts integration and culturally sustaining pedagogies. Arts integration is able to emancipate and give voice to the learner instead of responding to a pre-diagnosed culturally irrelevant context and language. Arts integration refers to the regular use of the arts as a tool for learning and representing knowledge within another subject, such as performing monologues in social studies or dancing patterns in math. The basic premise of arts integration is that the arts can be used to teach the core subjects, not as a standalone activity to enhance learning, but as the primary medium through which students process, acquire, and represent knowledge. And in a lot of ways, we see parallels between the use of arts integration as a curriculum and how emergent bilingual learners are treated within the classroom. So I think it is also a good pairing in that way. It should be recognized that each art form has its own formalized system of communication. And lastly, learning about the arts, e.g. art history, styles, conventions, notations, etc., develops literacy in the arts, which can be used to learn through all of the arts. The other ideology that I think is extremely powerful and successful within this concept of providing a more cohesive and inclusive curriculum for emergent bilinguals is culturally sustaining pedagogies. Culturally sustaining pedagogies, or CSP, is based on the idea of bringing learning outside of the classroom and connecting issues to the student's cultural background. CSP at its core is a commitment to sustain that which sustains us. Okay, so there's that direct connection between what the student is learning and what the student understands culturally for themselves. CSP then moves beyond sustaining languages and cultures to sustaining the people who speak and enact those languages and cultures. So with the combination of both arts integration and culturally sustaining pedagogies, I feel we are enabling our emergent bilingual learners to be able to have a voice and to be able to honor their own cultures through it and learn from it. One big concept that I have read in culturally sustaining pedagogies is the concept or idea of space. And so I've kind of outlined 7 different components of space that are utilized and why culturally sustaining pedagogies is so successful. This first concept is outside of school or outside classroom spaces, which I just addressed. Then we have this concept of temporal space, which I think is very important. And I address it as a means to express and explore post-colonial identity. And this concept is kind of after taking down and dismantling what I am addressing as my emancipatory discourse, the student is then given this space or opportunity to think beyond it and in their own context. The third space is providing additional space for collaboration. CSP is rooted in the legacy of minority communities and students finding belonging in their learning process and feeling the need to move their learning beyond the classroom towards social action. So it's this natural progression that leads outside of itself. We also have this schooling space. As a critical pedagogies, educators using CSP cannot and should not sustain only the aspects of the students' lives that are safe or easily addressable in the schooling spaces. So in order to be able to look outside of that, we have to address what is being contained within it. We also have a space to engage and belong. Foucault addresses this carceral state where the students critically engage through art in a way that creates the schooling space and sustains them. Now, this does look kind of like a negative and controlling atmosphere, but it's still a defining one as well to go from and take away from. And so we have to acknowledge this space in order to kind of address these other ones. Critical spaces. How can we provide spaces for students to be critical of society, yet also imagine and enact a world of joy beyond the interacting oppressions that attempt to circumscribe their lives? And the last space, and let me just address that these are not in chronological order. You don't necessarily start in one space and then go to the other. It's very cyclical. And sometimes you make progress and then you kind of dip back into this other sense of, negative space or carceral space, and then go back again. But the third sense of space is, or the last one is third space, where the cultures of students and their communities are sustained, extended, and complicated outside of a dichotomy of reproduction and resistance, where human agency, complexity, and resistance live together in pedagogies towards liberation. So it's ultimately culminating to this kind of all-inclusive idea or space for learning. And that's where we want to go, is to that third space. So what does it look like? What does arts integration and culturally sustaining pedagogies look like as a lesson or how do you teach that, instruct that within the classroom? I have lots of different lessons, and later on, I hope to kind of show more student examples. But I came across this artist. Her name is Mona, aka Sad Girl. And she is the epitome of what I am addressing and promoting my students to think about critically and creatively in order to understand their own culture and kind of lean on those boundaries, not necessarily break them down, but really understand that space that they are kind of fulfilling and maybe expanding. And so Mona, aka Sad Girl, she's a Japanese rapper. And what makes her really kind of interesting is how she uses her lyrics and the creativity of her music videos. So in her music videos, she switches between Japanese, Spanish, and English. And what makes her kind of very profound is that she uses a feminist global identity through the combination of song lyrics, musical style, cultural iconography, body decoration, gesture, and film techniques that localize the oppositional super vernacular of Chicano rap, while at the same time challenging discourses of patriarchy and nationalism. I have kind of gone through a lot of her different music videos, and I'm going to share one for you today to kind of give you an overall sense of what this looks like, how we can use our cultural backgrounds and be fluid with the different languages in order to understand this overall third space or well-rounded environment to be seen and heard and identified.
Living life on the edge and then in Nagashi the love. Ah, 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 ah. 感覚で生きて感受性磨くフリーダム。憧れのディバはろくでもない。スーツケース一つに詰め込んだ2ハイトローク引くガラガラ私なら大丈夫だから夢のため純駆で飛び出た山科周りなら血の気の多い家から下手してやつなら飛んでった隣に住むヤクザの背中に書いてたのはのり巻きやられだったな白髪の引き出し開けますか探し物手柄は何ですか社宅の底辺が夜中に呼ぶパトカーにパジャマのヤジをまだばっかはずだ北春日部鶴瀬ノルマンディリトル東京ここ川崎君は何にも知らない物販で CD 100枚セルさっき出るオーディエンス J ロと同じよ寿司詰め状態の100度よランドマーク F 横選び放題の事務所書いた列はのどこメキシコでのどこ
I wanted to reference it as being just the quintessential component or idea of how to address your culture and be very fluid with all of different languages in order to find a sense of identity and growth. And so again, this is primarily, especially with my middle school students, what I would be looking for as a project for them to create and understand their own cultural identity and how to use language to kind of reinforce all of the different components that make up yourself. So two main questions are being asked for this presentation. How does curriculum design perpetuate the system to maintain a privileged status quo? And how does it constrain those entities less privileged? So my response on this topic, I'm going to give a quote from the culturally sustaining pedagogies. The purpose of state-sanctioned schooling has been to forward the large assimilationist and often violent white imperial project, with students and families being asked to lose or deny their languages, literacies, cultures, and histories in order to achieve in schools. And so I feel the fundamental issue that is being perpetuated is an English-only policy or overemphasis on an English white colonial agenda curriculum as being the appropriate tool and discourse for success, which is extremely problematic. Basically, they're saying the only way to be successful in education is to do things the white way, especially using the English language. I completely disagree with this. I think that the English language is not the end all be all. I think it's about time that white colonialism loses its status in American society, especially in education. I think it's astounding that this archaic notion of truth and success is based on the white patriarchal agenda and definitively addresses how curriculum design constrains the oppressed and less privileged. As Faircloud suggests, what I am trying to do or propose is develop a sense of semiosis or meaning making as a discourse for language through arts integration. So I was hired to redevelop and realign arts integration in this charter school in Santa Fe. And not only am I developing all the curriculum pre-K through 8, I am also teaching every grade level and every student in this process. I have over 500 students, and I am able to see how my curriculum is put into action. And what's even more important is coming from my positionality as a white, cisgender, female teacher, instructor, and curriculum designer, I am able to see how my well-intentioned white agenda is failing with my 90% Hispanic student population, okay, who their first language is Spanish. Okay, so it's a humbling experience, but a needed one. My students cannot and will not relate to a curriculum that is not inherently and culturally relevant. If I did not have this interchange of curriculum and practice or application, I would be reinforcing the notion of assimilation and empowerment more so than emancipatory practices. And so lastly, the third section of our presentation discusses emancipatory discourse. And so my ultimate comment on how to implement this proposal of creating a more inclusive and sustainable curriculum for emergent bilinguals. So what I am addressing, I am saying, if power indicates truth, how do we know if power is genuine? To be emancipated from something, you must distinguish yourself from it. Foucault argues that truth cannot be understood without the relative nature of power. Within this construct, to distinguish yourself from truth is to distinguish yourself from power. In fundamentally reimagining the purpose of education, CSP demands a critical emancipatory vision of schooling that reframes the object of critique from our children to oppressive systems. To create or reframe the oppressive systems being taught to our culturally multilingual learners, we must put sociocultural theory into practice. We need to recognize that understanding comes from the interaction with others, as well as individual mental processing. The whole point of Black Lives Matters is to continue to validate that there is more than one culture living, thriving, and making a difference in American society. Unfortunately, as a result, we see the privileged white colonial monolingual demographic cling to their established risk game and perpetuate hegemony in trying to maintain this toxic sense of normalcy within our educational system. This needs to stop. We need to break it down. To break down these walls and reshape this space of learning, we need to value and accept creative ways of interpreting the human experience. We need to dismantle this concept of appropriate or correct behaviors. We need to be open and accept non-white colonial English facts and outcomes as being part of the American truth. It is not enough to recognize the many cultures that make up American society, lo and behold, even preceding white colonial establishments. We need to also praise and give joy to these oppressed cultures, but also, if necessary, devalue white culture, if that is what it takes to appreciate diversity. Thank you. Okay. Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still is news. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Yes, the strong get more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets won't never make the grade. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Mommy, you got lots of friends running round the door, but when you're gone and spending nights, they don't come round no more. Rich relations bring crust of bread